The truth about the Inquisition. According to a cheap Catholic vlogger by the name of Jesse Buller, in one of his defective and boomerang against the Catholic Church defense, during the 11th century, heretics like the Catharists proliferate, which by their organizational structure were heretical against the Catholic Church. The local governments sanctioned with punishments as they were transgressing local laws and ordinances by being heretics, thus the local governments subjected them to penalties such as death penalty. The Pope, receiving news of prejudice and injustice permeating with regards to these sanctions, decided to establish a platform where justice would be upheld. Thus he erected such format called the Inquisition. It is an investigative platform wherein the Catholic Church would determine who were really guilty of heresy against the Catholic Church, then, by the tentacles of the local government, sanctioned them to an appropriate penalty, that is, death, with horrific killing procedures. This, they say, mitigated the lapses of judgment wherein injustice had been lessened. According to the Catholic vlogger, it saved lives because only the guilty prospects were eliminated. That, in summary, as claimed, is the true Inquisition. The Catholic Church performed the investigation called the Inquisition. The local government performed the death penalty. So let us analyze it properly. There was a conspiracy between the Church and local governments, as it implied by the circumstance of Inquisition, that the Catholic condones the killing procedure by meddling on who must be killed, right? The Pope authorized the Inquisition body. An excerpt. Quote, "The medieval Inquisition started life in a series of papal bulls on heresy, in particular Lucius III ad Abolandum of 1184 and Innocent III cum ex officii nostri of 1207. These defined the crime of heresy, imparted the duty of the Church to root it out, and equated it with treason against the state. It was always the case that the Church was seeking to persuade, rather than enforce, but recognized that these efforts had failed and that stronger measures were required. Parallel to these developments, the concept of inquisitio was being used widely in canon and civil cases as part of the professionalization of law. Innocent IV formalized the procedures for all kinds of ecclesiastic enquiries, as well as instituting the office of Inquisitor of Heretical Depravity." Unquote. Source: Heresy and Authority in Medieval Europe, Scholar Press, 1980. If the Catholic Church didn't condone or conform to the killing of heretics, they shouldn't in the first place participated in this gruesome procedure on who must be killed. But they did. They played as accomplice to this judiciary formula by acting as a determinant agent to who must be killed, thus in essence is a participation on the procedure of death penalty. Meaning, the Catholic Church then condoned death penalty for heretics because if not, they shouldn't had meddled in that business of the government to exterminate heretics. They participated in the killing process of heretics by being the authority over the Inquisition body, thus in essence was an accomplice in that apparent conspiracy to exterminate heretics. It's simplified in these terms: if you know that judging a person as heretics would cause his death, would you judge him if you don't want him to die? With this reality, Catholics wanted heretics to die. To make it clearer, there was malice on the part of Catholics, an unchristian and perverted attribute. The thing is, they were an accomplice to murder, as nobody really knew who were guilty in the eyes of God, and that God never have any mandate for the local governments to kill. History attests to this killing of heretics by the local governments, as it say, quote, "In the beginning, the punishment of the heretics in the trial court of the Church is the spiritual punishment, which is to excommunicate or to be rejected to become members of the Church to those who resist being heretics. Enters to it is the heavy punishment, even to kill the heretics because of the civil government who strives hard to implement the punishment because they think that the heretics want to topple down the civil authority." Unquote. World History, O'Brien, pages 274 to 76. If the local governments thought that heretics intended to topple the government, that's why they killed them, then Catholics were participatory to these killings because they were acting in collateral to it, by being the one who sorted out who were real heretics through an Inquisition body. They were an accomplice to who would be killed. They were an accomplice for death penalty, murder. In fact, death penalty through burning was a punishment for heresy, as it says. Quote, "The death penalty was only imposed on cases of unrepentant heretics, or those found guilty of relapsing. A death sentence could also be imposed in absentia when the accused had fled, as it was assumed in such cases that they were unrepentant. We do not possess many figures for the numbers of burnings, but some statistics are available. For instance, Bernard Gouy convicted 700 over a period of 10 years in Toulouse, of which 40 were executed." Source: page 69, James B. Given, Inquisition and Medieval Society, New York, Cornell University Press, 2001. As supplemental, how did they do Inquisition? How did they determine who were really heretics against the Catholic Church? Internet is a platform of information, and we could extract valuable reasons to assert that they did it by different kinds of torture mechanism and instruments. Though history attested how the method of Inquisition were independent from the Pope, but it is only the method employed by the Inquisitor, still these Inquisition were under the authority of the Pope, as he was the one who authorized this Inquisition body, as it say. Quote, "This law of the Church forbade any inquisitor to kill the heretics. Some laws allowed the civil government to employ punishment. In Spain, the Inquisition of the heretics was instituted by King Fernando and Queen Isabella as their national instrument for defense. The Pope was the one who appointed for them a great inquisitor, but their method of inquiry was their own, independent control from the Pope. Their Inquisition was intended for the Jews and the Moro who had been converted into Christians, whose volitional means were not to topple down the Spanish government. Their Inquisition was more coercive than to some places. The first Grand Inquisitor was Thomas Torquemada in the year 1420–98. He was responsible in burning at stake of at least 2,000 heretics." Unquote. Grolier Universal Encyclopedia, Volume 5, pages 436 to 437. So for being the authority over the Inquisition body, then the Pope is accountable for any procedure the Inquisition had pursued or what methods it had. So if the Inquisition body used torture methods on heretics, then the Pope is responsible for it, being the one who authorized the Inquisition body. He authorized the Inquisition body. Note for that. Indeed, torture was used in the Inquisition. An excerpt. Quote, "Inquisitors were allowed to use torture by Gregory IX, who allowed free faculty of the sword against enemies of the faith subject to various restrictions, unlike secular authorities that had greater freedom in this department. It was rarely resorted to and involved whipping or beating rather than rack or claws and cords. The strapido, whereby the victim is hung by the arms and dropped, is also mentioned in the 15th century. Cases of abuse occurred, however, and this led to procedures being tightened up." Unquote. Some of these excerpts were taken from this site, www.bida.org.uk. So for being the authority who established the Inquisition body, then he must be responsible for whatever means the Inquisitor utilize as method, like torture. This Inquisition body sorted out who were real heretics, then passed on to the government for the death penalty. Meaning, the Catholic Church through the Inquisition body sorted out who must be killed by death penalty. Obviously, an accomplice for murder. Thank you.